What are the 7 deadliest sins in healthcare marketing? Well, to find out more, I had to go directly to the source. You're going to love my interview with the Dandy Devil, also known as Christian Barnett. He's the group lead strategy and creative at Untitled. I caught up with Christian right after he presented those 7 deadliest sins on stage at the MashMed 26 conference. You're going to want to hear why Christian and I believe that pride is one of the easiest sins to fall victim to in healthcare marketing. Oh, and you're going to love Christian's costume. Let's get to it.
Swaay.Health.
Christian, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Colin. Pleasure to be here.
First of all, I have to comment, love the costume.
Thank you very much. I originally thought I could be the devil and Dan could be like an angel and I'd get him some wings and a halo. But one of the corporate marketing folk at Unlock said, no, you want to dress like a dandy devil. So I dressed like a dandy devil and Dan had the accompanying dandy angel.
Yes, well, so just to give context for those watching this, you were just on stage here at the annual MashMed conference, and you and Dan Lavelle from Geisinger, right, just did a fantastic presentation on the 7 deadly sins from a marketing perspective. And you, as the Dandy Devil, were perfect in that role.
Thank you very much.
So I wanted to make sure that our audience got a little taste of that presentation. But before we get there, Christian, can you tell us a little bit about your role and your organization?
Okay, I work at Unlock. Unlock is a integrated healthcare only marketing agency, integrated marketing. My role there is I lead the strategy and creative departments. The agency is about 300 people, and we have clients in integrated marketing, in performance marketing, and in managed care, different lines of business.
And the presentation you gave today, first of all, fantastic again, really liked it. So tell me a little bit about the 7 deadly sins. First of all, what was the genesis of that presentation?
That's a really good question because I was thinking about it and I'm like, I don't quite remember. But I can tell you a little bit, which might help. So at my last review, my boss said, how can I help the company? And he said, well, one thing you could do is raise your profile. So I do these little LinkedIn things called unpopular opinions, and this seemed another way of doing it. And I guess the genesis was to find a way to entertain people and be interesting, and yet at the same time deliver a kind of serious message. And for those of you who saw it, I guess that's kind of how I go about my business. I'm very serious about it, but I try and do it in a playful and engaging way, like a good campaign. So I don't know when it happened, but the idea of the 7 deadly sins kind of struck me as a good vessel to put these kind of learnings. There was like, what do we do now and what can we learn from it? What can we do now and what can we learn from it? And how can I link those things to the real 7 deadly sins?
I loved it, and what you've just mentioned is sort of a very macro look at the challenge we have in healthcare. How do we make the stuff we do essentially edutainment? Because frankly, that's what people want these days, right?
Absolutely.
That's what dominates YouTube, that's what dominates TikTok. But one of the ones right off the bat that I was impressed with was your comments around the first deadly sin, pride.
Yeah.
And you flashed up some things that I think a lot of folks are very guilty of. I think for a lot of us, and that is pictures of their docs, saying that we have the best doctors, saying that we are ranked #1. That's all great, but as you put it, not extremely effective marketing. Tell me why.
So I understand why people's kind of first reaction is to do it. But I think I said in the presentation, if one of the issues that healthcare is facing is trust or lack of trust, if you do it on a one-to-one basis, how do I get your trust? I don't talk about how excellent I am. I try to meet you where you are. I try to think about you and attend to you to get your trust. So putting pictures of doctors on billboards and saying how many ranking state points or rewards we have doesn't seem to be doing any of that. It's not humble. It's not serving our patients. It's saying, look, we're really amazing. That feels like bragging. rather than I'm open to you. So, I mean, I guess that's what we were trying to do, and again, have some fun with it. Try and point it out in a kind of humorous way.
Yeah, and I want to stick on that one just for a second, because it's unlike how you would think marketing would be done. I mean, you think about restaurants, and you go, we have a Michelin star chef.
Yeah.
We are ranked highly in these places. That can make a difference when you're making a decision based on what restaurant to go to, right? But when it comes to your care, if you're trying to get a chef or a meal for somebody who has, let's say, an allergy, or someone who has a particular diet that they must stick to, well, the fact that you're a Michelin star restaurant or Michelin star chef won't make a difference to me. Can you make me something that's going to help me? And I think that's what I got out of that presentation part, to say, actually, we got to be much more attuned to the individual's needs, not the general.
I love that way of thinking about it, and it really, I don't know, it got me really thinking in the moment. And I'm thinking, well, actually, how different are we from that? And I guess the difference would be, you don't see restaurants saying, we are a Michelin star restaurant, on a great big billboard or in an ad. What's front and center is the food or the atmosphere, and try and present it to you rather than bragging. The star often is like it's like an endorsement of something else, not the thing in its own right, which I guess is another way of trying to say what we were getting at. Yeah. Thanks for that.
No, but that was again, to me, like, we just fall into this trap.
Yeah.
Right? It's so easy to say, well, hey, let's throw up an ad, let's do this, because we think that's what people want. And on one level, it's true. I want a very competent physician. I want a very competent organization looking after me. That's great. But to your point, it's not what I'm making a choice on. I want that validated after I make my choice. But the way I make my choice is, do I think this person is going to be able to take the most care of me? And when you ask it that way, it is around the things that you're talking about, in terms of, are you going to meet me where I am? Do you understand my social economic background? Do you understand my culture? Do you understand my needs as a patient with these particular conditions? That is far more important than whether or not you've got a degree from a certain place.
I agree, and now it gets me thinking, like, I know that systems do this, but I wonder whether, the place to hear about a doctor is if they talk to you to camera or on a website. Or we did a campaign a number of years ago, and it was to try and introduce the doctors to the audiences in more human terms. So we found doctors who were willing to share their outside of work life. So there was a doctor who had a VW camper and went surfing at the weekends. There was a doctor who was a champion dancer, like a
ballroom dancer, yeah.
Ballroom dancer, thank you, the actions. A champion ballroom dancer. And we felt that was a far better way to show people what the doctors were really like as people, which I think it's just a more interesting and kind of more human way, more relatable way than there's a big billboard with a guy with a stethoscope on. It just feels like it's got an extra level of interest to it. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I hear stories all the time about how some patients made a choice of a doc, especially for orthopedics, because that doc did the same sport that they did. So they understand the desire to get back to it.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Or to get further in playing that sport. Yeah. And so they were going, they'll be empathetic to my situation, and therefore they'll provide me better care. And for the, and whether it's true or not doesn't matter. It's just that they feel that that's that connection.
I think billboards have a role to play. I mean, in a way, they're still the most public of all the things we put out in the world. They are genuinely public. They have a role, but I'm not sure the role is that.
Right. So what you're saying is, you're not anti-billboard.
Not at all.
You're not anti-billboard here.
No, I'm not anti. I mean, not at all. Not at all.
So tell me a little bit about some of the other, of all the other sins that you presented, what was the other one that you're hoping the audience was really going to really remember?
I found myself. The one I thought about the hardest was really the one we called Gluttony.
Okay.
And that was the one where we spoke about the US healthcare system as a whole, and how the average kind of spend per capita per annum is higher than other countries, and what we might do about that. And then the flip side, which Dan spoke about as the virtue, and I think he and I both really strongly believe this, that if you think about what we do as an instrument of healthcare in its own right, you could argue pretty convincingly that during the pandemic, and Dan started down that path, in the pandemic, good communication probably saved more lives than any one doctor would in their entire career, just through communicating the right things in the right way to the right people at the right time. Now, if you think about healthcare as an instrument, communication as an instrument for healthcare in its own right, then we should be spending more time and more thought about how to, behavioral health, lifestyle choices, little nudges here and there, getting people to think about their health before it becomes an issue. Because that's where, and Dan quoted about 90% of chronic conditions can be prevented or rolled back. That's the sort of thing where I think communication has got a genuine role to play before people get into the hospital itself. And I got quite excited about that because I think the possibilities for us as an industry are kind of limitless there. Yeah.
So I think we're all guilty of some of these sins that we spoke about. I don't think the goal is to be that pure. I mean, we're all going to make these mistakes. That's how we learn after all. But when you've addressed them, in your opinion, when you've addressed some of these sins correctly, what does that look like? What should a healthcare organization, or for that matter, any organization that's doing marketing, what does that feel like when you've done it well, when you're not making those mistakes?
Oh, okay. There's a number of things going through my head. The first one is good thought. It's interesting. A lot of my time on the agency side is spent waiting, rushing. And it's like, but that waiting time, perhaps we can be thinking. I think good thinking solves so much time and money later on. If we're purposeful about what we're doing, like some of the business objectives we were talking about, and some of the how to be more focused about our briefs and our messaging and our media thinking. If we thought better and we were more purposeful, I think we would all feel better about ourselves as a contributor of value rather than cost. And that's the kind of strategic side. And I think creatively, if you're more thoughtful, and it's not that we're not purposeful, it's that we get caught, I think, in the wrong conversations. We get caught on getting things right rather than getting things different. And I think we perhaps could spend some time getting things a little bit more different or pushing the boundaries, a bit like the films we showed at the end. Because I think when a team, a client and agency team, does work well, it can be career defining. You can really feel you've changed something if you get good thinking and good work out of the door, and the work makes a difference. It feels you're doing creative stuff which makes you feel good about your work and the team around you, and you're having more impact in the world. I think it's worth the effort.
I love it. And I loved at the end you showed a really funny, humorous We Care video, which Unlock put together. And it's very fun about the stereotypes that we typically see in those types of videos, where we have the slow-mo walking physicians with the lab coats and the stethoscopes.
Crossing their arms and looking to camera.
But again, why do you think we fall into those tropes?
Oh, that's a great question. And I think it's a function of so many things. And we probably haven't got time for all of them in the depths that we could. That's a paper in its own right. But I do think I think there's pressure from approvers like leadership, C-suite, perhaps high-ranking physicians who feel that it's easy to have a view about marketing when actually it's a discipline and a profession in its own right. I mean, it sounds corny, but we wouldn't tell them how to do surgery, and I don't think they should be telling us how to do our role. They can have a view for sure, but I think they should listen to our view. I think that's one of the issues. I think we don't. This is going to sound a bit hard on us. I think we get so caught up in the day-to-day. Everyone's working fast and hard under pressure, particularly given the broader circumstances, and particularly since the pandemic. A lot of do this, get this done, get this out. And sometimes I think just stopping and saying, how can we do it better, not how can we do it faster, is the right answer. And I think we all get caught in, water finds the path of least resistance. And I think sometimes we do that. Yeah.
Well, and to your point, I don't think if anyone put out a video like the one you showed, I don't think anyone gets fired, because I think everyone looks around and goes, well, that's what everyone else was doing.
That's right.
And so this one looks like that. Maybe it's slightly different elements of creativity snuck in, But on the whole, it's pretty much the same.
I think you're
as
right.
everyone else.
You're right.
It's not until someone shows that by breaking that mold,
That's right.
like the other video you
Yeah.
showed, that people go, that is different. It can be like that.
The last one for those who weren't here was the BBDO, Abbott Mead Vickers. It's a UK agency, and they won a Cannes Line in 2021 for an ad about cancer support, Macmillan Cancer Support. And the ad is, I've shown it hundreds of times and I get goosebumps. I'm getting goosebumps now even talking about it because it's so real. You know, it shows the highs, the lows, and in showing the lows and the extreme emotions around cancer and death and survivorship and victory, it just shows it's a little roller coaster of emotions. And I think we could learn from that. Healthcare is essentially, in essence, so emotional and so dramatic. It's why there's always a program on TV about healthcare. There's not always a program on TV about shampoos or toothpaste, right? There's always a drama on TV or on the cinema and movie theatre about healthcare. Why? Because it's essentially dramatic and it's high emotion. We could capture that. And I think people's everyday lives will have experienced some of those ups and downs at some part in their life or the lives around them. And at an extreme, even if you break out in hives one evening, you're still catastrophizing it in your head, right? And that is a drama in your own mind. And I just think we miss so much of the possibilities, whether it's humor, whether it's high emotion, whether it's drama. We just don't go there as enough. You know, it's there waiting for us, like, come on, come on.
No, I kind of liken it to Hollywood. We get stuck in the tropes sometimes of, well, a film must be this way. A Hollywood hit has these elements to it. And it's not until a bold filmmaker will come along and change it that suddenly go, oh, well, that's a great movie too, or this is a great. And so I'm hoping more people will choose that second video that you chose to say, let's show some of that raw emotion, the good and the bad, and not be afraid of it. Because I think there is sort of a fear to show the downs, the downs of healthcare. But I think to your point earlier, it shows humility. It is not about ego, and it shows reality. And I think people can, in these days, identify with that a little bit more.
So in that film, there was a couple of times where the nurses kind of broke. You know, they kind of, you saw a tear, and then at the final frame, you saw the nurse kind of go. I get all teary thinking about it. The nurse goes to the visitor, you know, and just holds her, and that is high drama from the nurse. And we're all human, and really, I just think sometimes we should explore that a little more.
So if I was an executive, not a marketing executive, but an executive at a healthcare organization that was maybe resistant to doing something like this, because maybe I see it as too risky, maybe I see it as a bit too expensive, what would you recommend the marketer in that situation say to the executive to maybe tip the scales a little bit, to allow them to be a bit more bold, or to correct one of these 7 deadly sins that you mentioned before?
I have an example, and I think it worked well. And I would do something similar again. The example was a number of years ago, we were doing a campaign for diabetes awareness in Monterey County. And we wanted, you know, diabetes can be from a teenager to a 90-year-old, you know, male, female, it's for everyone. So to help focus, we took to the client different ways of solving the problem. So we took some really aggressive cigarette advertising, because that's a stop doing something, you know, very aggressive, very startling. And then we took some kind of those kind of icons of American culture, like Smokey the Bear, and I forget the other ones we took, but kind of transgenerational, you know, icons that people recognize. And we also brought, there's a very famous campaign from Australia called Dumb Ways to Die. I don't know if you know it. It's actually about preventing deaths on metro railway stations. A lot of people were dying, it seems, in Australia at railway stations. So there was this bunch of cartoon characters, and there was a little song, and it was called Dumb Ways to Die. And, you know, they had all the ways of, you know, putting yourself in a toaster would be a dumb way to die. Or, I can't remember the other ones, running into a wall, I don't know. And it was very honest, but very disarming because of the use of these characters. These little the song went to #1. It won load of can. It was hugely effective, and it was little charming, innocent little characters basically dying. We know in cartoons that crazy things happen, and that allowed us. I mean, the client was like, yes, let's do this. Let's go down this path. So we created a blue cartoon monster, which represented diabetes. Now that was where we took work in to the client, and we got them in a discussion about what the tone and the audiences and how we communicate. So we use that example. If we were to go to a C-suite and have enough time with them to show that last film and say, how do you feel about this? As a person, not in your boardroom. We could even do better and go to their house and play it. So try and get in their minds a little bit to be on the receiving end. Some of the greatest things that we can do as an outsider is to help clients see the world from the point of view of the patients or the consumers. So if we can somehow replicate that by taking the C-suite literally out of their boardroom and somehow putting their heads or their hearts in a different place so they can see things a little differently, and perhaps show them some of that work and say, this is how we should be measuring our work. Because if you look at all this, it's the same. Oh, it's still the same. And there are certain rules around marketing, which is a whole another discussion about branding, having an idea which is ownable, being recognizable rather than just part of the wallpaper. And I think just being reasonable and talking about advertising and campaign theory and showing some really good examples is the way to do it. Part of the paper today was kind of like a fun education, as you say, edutainment. And I think that's my way anyway.
I love it. Final question for you, Christian.
Yeah.
Like, if I was a marketer watching this or was privy enough to see the 7 deadly sins, what would you recommend I do on Monday morning to start down a better path for myself as a marketer?
Oh, we'd come and do it for you, and we'd tailor it to. Some of those things I think still apply. Like, think about the brief you're trying to write. Think about what you're trying to achieve. Think about the impact you're trying to have on the people you serve on behalf of the organisation that employs you. Don't just think about, I've got to get this done and out of the door. And I think that's where we all start to go a little wrong, when it's, I've got to get this thing from here to here. That's only part of it. The big thing is we want to create an effect in real people. And in a way, it's a privilege to work in an industry which allows us to have that effect on people. So firstly is to have your mindset right. It's got to link back to business goals or organizational goals. It's got to affect the people who are the end consumer of this stuff. It's not about getting something from an in tray to an out tray. And then find ways to play. I know it's a funny thing to say. I think sometimes we lose our sense of playfulness, and anything which has got creativity anywhere near it, I really believe that having some element of play, some sense of trying something new, seeing what happens, testing something out, shouldn't be lost on us. Yeah.
I love it. Well, Christian, you shared a ton of great information with us. Where can people go to connect with you and learn more about Unlock Health?
Well, just at Unlock, I've got a LinkedIn page, Christian Barnett, and just call through Unlock or get at me through Unlock, and I'd be so happy to come and put this on again and recruit someone to come and Dan or whoever to come and wear the white version and
there you go.
Come and do some workshops.
You've now put that out there. There's going to be someone who says, well, I'm only working with Christian if he comes in costume. So you put that out there. I love it. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very
really
much.
Appreciate it.
No, thank you. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you. Great questions as well.
Hey, I really want to thank Christian for being such a good sport and doing that entire interview in costume. I've never interviewed a dandy devil before, and I can honestly say it was a lot of fun. I especially loved our conversation around pride and gluttony, and how Christian believes that healthcare organizations need to be a bit more humble, more service-oriented, and communicate more clearly. I can't wait to see what Christian and the Unlock Health team come up with next. And hey, if you made it this far in the video, we would really appreciate it if you mash that like button and click subscribe. Also, head over to Swaay.Health, that's Swaay with 2 A's, .health, where you will find more great content like this. I'm Colin Hung. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video.
Swaay.Health.